Woo!
This is awesome. I'm so glad we went. Didn't go to work. We'd be sitting there going, God, we should have gone fishing.
Welcome, everyone. I'm your host, Cary Beeson. With me today is the other host, Ryan Hodson.
Hello, everyone.
And this is our first ever podcast of the Salty Yak. We came up with this idea because I couldn't find a saltwater kayak podcast out there that I like listening to, that I thought was informative. So we decided to give it a shot on our own. The whole point of this is we're going to talk about 95% of the time saltwater kayak fishing. Every now and then we'll talk a little freshwater fishing that we do, and even some offshore fishing that we do. Just giving our experiences, telling our stories, trying to help out all y'all out there that maybe are just new to this. So in my 51 years, I have been fishing most of my life. Started off like most of y'all, fishing freshwater, fishing ponds, catching bass and bluegill and channel cat. And then as I grew older, enlisted in the military, went overseas and started saltwater fishing. Came back home, continued saltwater fishing, and been saltwater fishing ever since. But it wasn't until about a year ago that I got my first kayak and got totally addicted to paddling and catching mostly inshore. Have been offshore once, and we'll talk about those experiences. But that's me in a nutshell. Been fishing all my life, and but only have been kayak fishing for about a year. Ryan, what about you?
Oh, wow. Let's see. I grew up in Corpus, and kind of what started me was I remember my dad and my uncle took my brother and we fished some little shallow cut that on the island, Corpus Christi, and we were soaking dead shrimp on the bottom. We caught a few redfish, and it was kind of from that moment on we were hooked. And my brother and I would, as we grew up, we would kind of fish when we could on the coast. My mom had a friend that had a cabin on Baffin Bay, and we got the keys to it on the weekends, and so we could go out there and fish on her pier whenever they weren't out there. My brother started his own guide service, still running one. He specializes in fly fishing now, but so when we were doing that, we would go fish every chance we got. Kind of like you, about a year and a half ago, I kind of always wanted a kayak, never really kind of, I guess, knew where to get started. And a friend of mine that works with us helped me get my first kayak, and it kind of just, the obsession took off the day I bought it, and it just hasn't stopped since.
I thought I wanted a canoe, and it wasn't until my buddy, he sold me two kayaks for $100 each.
Yeah, I don't know if sold is the right word or you stole is the right word.
Maybe, but that's really how I got in it. I thought I wanted a canoe, but ended up with a kayak and just fell in love with it. So the things that you can look forward to when you listen to this podcast in the future, we're going to talk about what works for us, inshore fishing, that kind of stuff. We're going to talk about trips that we've planned, and actually that's what's going to be the main basis for today's podcast. Is we went to Pointe Aux Chenes, Louisiana, to the PAC Kayak Rental, and I did a trip down there. We went on Monday. But what else we're going to do? We're going to have we'll do interviews with different saltwater kayak anglers, possibly some YouTubers. We're based here in Texas, but anybody that's listening up and down the coast can certainly probably glean something from this. And that's pretty much what we're going to be doing. I mean, guests, what we know, planning. We're going to cover the trips that we plan, and we're just ordinary guys. We have regular jobs, and we're doing this just because we want to help the other kayak guys out there. We're not getting paid for any of this. We're just doing it because we think there's a spot for it. So with that, we left Monday morning.
Yes, about 7 a.m.
We were working night shifts, so we left. We worked all night and then drove down to Pointe Aux Chenes.
8.5 hours.
No doubt.
Long drive.
Our plan was to get so kind of back up here. We've been watching the YouTube videos of Rex Del Rey and Robert Field and Heath Panigan, watching all them catching all these fish down at PAC Kayak Rentals. And one day, Ryan's like, we need to go down there. And I'm like, there's no reason that we shouldn't. Let's plan a trip. So got to looking at what it took to plan a trip. Took nothing more than going to the website, clicking on contact, and emailing Lisa. And she's very prompt. And then, the next day, she emailed us back with some dates that we could stay at the houseboat, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. And that's all it took to set it up. They're very, very laid back, very wonderful people down there. I tried to ask her if we needed to even give her a credit card for deposit. She said, nope, y'all just take care of it when y'all get here. Just that wonderful and trusting of a person. So it was a really easy trip to plan. We decided Ryan has 2 Hobie kayaks, and he let me borrow one of them. We also brought along my youngest son, who's actually 21. We brought him along on the trip, and left Monday morning and got down there Monday afternoon. From there, we thought we were going to fish Monday afternoon, and that was the whole plan. But once we got down there, I guess the wind was blowing a little bit.
Yeah, we got down there, I think, was it 3, 4 o'clock?
Yeah.
We just kind of decided with the wind blowing, and just to kind of, I guess, get everything set up, get everything organized for the next day, and kind of just get comfortable, get situated, and then we would just fish that evening off the back of the houseboat. And they've got a lighted pier. Of course, we'd fish there, but we just decided to kind of get everything situated and ready, so that way the next day we were ready to go bright and early.
So the houseboat, they've got, right now they have a couple different places you can stay when you go down there. One is the houseboat. It sleeps 7 comfortably. That's 6 in a bed and 1 on the couch. They have a very nice RV there that I think also sleeps 6, and they're in the process of building I guess it's like a bunkhouse.
Yeah, I think so.
That's good. I'm not sure how many it's going to sleep, but they also have RV rental, or if they have the spots open, you can rent an RV slot. We decided to stay in the boathouse. It has fishing lights off the back of it, and we thought that would be pretty cool. So it was a very good time. I'm going to talk about the houseboat first, or we going to talk about the fishing?
I'd say talk about the houseboat.
Okay. Super neat. If you go, we have an Instagram and a Facebook page. If you go to that, you'll see some pictures of the houseboat. Said it sleeps 7, shower, all of that. The only shortcoming that we thought was there's not a stove inside. It's stocked. I say not fully, let's say semi-stocked. There's a refrigerator, there's a microwave, there's a toaster oven, but there's no inside stove. They have an outside gas grill that you can use. We had a little problem with the wind blowing some evenings, and it was a little harder to cook out there. So you kind of got to work around that and figure out what you're going to do with that. But the beds were good. The beds were great. Nice hot shower. There's a 3rd deck on the houseboat. You can actually go on the top and get a huge panoramic view of the whole Pointe Aux Chenes little area down there. What am I missing about the houseboat?
Big kind of an open area that's covered where the grill is. Plenty of room to put your gear out and get everything set up and organized. Plenty of room on the back to fish, out into there's a kind of reminds me of the Intercoastal Canal. Plenty of room to fish there. You just kind of leave your stuff out. It's kind of a unique place. You don't have to. Even Eddie told us just leave your stuff out. Nobody's going to steal it. And we left rods and reels out. Set up on the back deck, and nobody touched it. But everybody did that. It was pretty unique. I think like you said, I don't know if the beds were just that comfortable or we were just that tired. But beds were comfortable. Water was hot. Plenty of hot water. That was one thing that I noticed. It never, and I like to take long showers, and it just never ran out of hot water. Very comfortable. I definitely would stay there again. Highly recommend it. I think we didn't get to see inside the RV.
No,
it looked nice. The houseboat was pretty cool.
It has the RV has a fireplace.
Well, if you
I talked to Craig, the guy who was staying in it that night, or those couple nights we were there, and he said it has a fireplace.
Well, if you know.
Well, I think it's a mock fireplace, but still.
Houseboat has a giant TV out there.
Inside and out.
Yeah, if you're there during football season.
And then the room. Our room had a TV. Did yours?
No, mine didn't have a TV.
Ours had a TV.
Not that I would have watched it at night. As soon as I lay down, I was asleep. But the fridge was the right size fridge. Put some stuff in there. I mean, we had several ice chests to hold stuff as well. So it was just it was really awesome. I'd highly recommend staying there. It's a pretty unique place to stay. Like you said, that third floor, man, if you're into suntanning, it's a great place to suntan. If you want to get really nice panoramic photos, that's the place to go for sure.
So we're already making plans to go back, and that's where we're going to stay. So we mentioned there's lights off the back of the house. The current was going pretty strong the first night that we were there, so there wasn't any trout or redfish coming up behind the boathouse. So we walked the whole 50 yards to go over to the lighted pier. And the first night when we were there, the trout were on fire. We caught several nice ones, like 20 inchers, and caught a few little redfish. But it was a good time. And then woke up the next morning and we brought 2 Hobies with us, and then we rented one for my youngest son Nicholas. We rented a PA 14 for him. So the first day we just took off on our own and headed off down the canal, and you literally can go 360 degrees and fish. So we headed off down the canal, and wind was blowing a little bit, and we ended up just doing some drift fishing, kind of down, just blind casting, and it wasn't 15 minutes into it and I had my first redfish on. We drifted a little bit further and hooked up with a second one. I don't think Ryan and Nicholas, my son, I don't think that they hooked up till a little bit later. But we got down into another little area, and my son Nicholas sight casted his first redfish ever.
That was really cool.
Yeah, he was. I'm sorry he's not here to tell the story, but I'll kind of tell it for him. He sees the splashing, and he didn't know really. He'd never sight casted reds before. He'd always, we pretty much just chunked live bait at him. So he didn't know really what it was, and when he realized what it was, he was just kind of startled and surprised, and he threw an old Bugs lure to him, and he took it, and he had his first sight cast red there. So Ryan, you had a pretty good little.
Golly, I credit Nick for this. I kind of stole his idea. I was kind of watching him, and I was like, there's another small section of marsh that I think you were further down the canal Nick was in. You were looking. So I kind of stole Nick's idea and went around and started. I found a little maze where these marshes kind of snake their way, and so I'm standing up, kind of just slowly paddling, and I'm looking to my left side because it's in 6-8 inches of water, and I just happened to glance to the right, and no lie, there was just this. I don't know. He was definitely a slot redfish, just right next to me, like within arm's reach, and it shocked me more so than anything because I just wasn't expecting it. And he I don't know if he had no worries in the world. He just kind of cruising right by me, and then he just kind of just circled and went away. And I tried pitching my Bugs lure to him, but I was in the wind, and it got really ugly for me. And so that kind of got me going, realizing, hey, I can sight cast up here in the shallow. So I just kind of worked my way through these little mazes and little ponds, and I had several groups of 2 or 3 redfish that were kind of scooting by me. By the time I saw them, it was too late to cast, and I picked up a couple using a hoagie swim bait, just kind of blind casting more so. But I picked up a couple there, and it was just 6-8 inches of water, maybe a foot at the most. It was just really cool to see them working in the water.
I think I ended up catching one more. Me and Nicholas kind of stopped together, had lunch, chatted, and then we moved across that main channel, and then I think I just blind casted, caught another one. Just nice, Louisiana slot's a lot different than Texas slot. So Texas, we're 20 to 29, and Louisiana they were
28.
20 to 28, and Louisiana it was 16 to 27.
It's interesting.
So they were Louisiana slot fish that we were catching. They weren't quite Texas slot fish. They weren't quite 20.
I think we still went off, even though they were. We were still in Louisiana. I think we were still going off.
We kind of.
I don't know if we just kind of defaulted back to. We just are used to the Texas slot, or we just were like, well, that's. I don't know. We just kind of always everything we did, we went back to the Texas slot limit for our redfish.
Yeah, we just look to me. You get a better fillet off a 20-inch.
Sure, I agree.
So it's about 2:00 in the afternoon. We fished, and we're within sight of the houseboat that they're staying at.
Oh, it was so close.
We were talking about going back and making some ceviche from some of the trout we caught the night before. But I decided, what, those trout have been in a cooler all night. We probably don't want to make ceviche out of those. We need some fresh ones. And the evening before, we were told of another spot just north of the camp where there was a bunch of shrimp nets, and there was a pass from the canal into the marsh, and they were catching trout there the evening before. So at 2:00, we decided, well, let's just pedal over there and check it out. So we pedaled over there, and we weren't there.
Not even 10 minutes,
yeah,
maybe?
10 minutes, and Nick had the first one.
Yeah.
And then, did he catch the second one too?
I think he hooked up at least 2 or 3 times before we did.
So we put 2 on the stringer, 2 trout on the stringer, and we pedaled back to the houseboat, and 30 minutes later, they were ceviche. And took a little break, and then that evening, we just turned around and went back to the nets.
Yeah.
And what we found there, the current was coming out of the canal into the marsh, and the trout and the redfish were just kind of tucked behind any little piece of cover that broke the current. And so if you would just throw up current of them, and we were using hoagies, swimming jacks, and major minnows, and on just a 16th ounce jig head, and you just bring it right by them, and if they were there, they would slam it. And we fished probably a little, I don't know, it was a couple 100-yard area, had a couple little islands that were breaking it.
Yeah.
And we caught, I don't know, 6, 8 fish right there that evening, just messing around, in an hour or so. So that was day 1. So we get back, get cleaned up, cook dinner, fish the pier again at night. It wasn't quite as hot as it was the night before, but it was still plenty of trout out there, and it was enough that it kept us interested for several hours out there playing. And there was rumors that big old black drum were coming up there too. So we kept seeing redfish every now and then. When we kept looking for these big black drum just to have fun with them too. So we talked to Eddie, and Eddie and Lisa are the owners of PAC Kayak Rentals, and they live right down there. And they owners, operators, the whole thing. Not going to find 2 nicer people than them. We made arrangements with Eddie to do a thing they call the mothership. He's got a 24-foot Carolina skiff.
Yeah, I think so. And it's kind of designed, I guess, for. Used to be a crab fisherman back in the day, and so it was kind of designed, or set up for crab fishermen. But he's got on one side of his boat, he built a rack that's got 3 sets of arms, so he can put 3 kayaks on the rack and 1 on the bottom of the boat.
I think he said he's putting more than that on the bottom.
And it was a really neat setup. Really, it's just really cool setup how he had it, so he can mothership these guys like us out to the marsh to places that it take you hours to get to, if you could even get that far. Places in the marsh that fish may not have ever seen anybody. It's just way out in the middle of nowhere.
And he knows all these places, and he's got nicknames for them. So he took us to a place called the Green Mile, and we get there, and he kind of gives us the parameters. There's basically in the horizon that we're looking at, there's a line of trees, and he's like, you can go all the way to there, and you can go to the left. Because there's 600 acres of marsh here to fish. And then there was an old dilapidated 2-story house on a barge out there. He goes, you'll be able to see that house from anywhere in the marsh. So just make your way back to this house and then text me or call me and I'll come pick you up. So he drops us there in the marsh and away we go.
Middle of nowhere. You just kind of take off, and it was so cool. It was almost intimidating because just everywhere you look, it's just little mazes of water in this marsh, and it's almost like, well, where do you go?
Where do you start?
Where do you start? You know, I think we just started going, and then if we'd hit a spot, it'd be a dead end. We'd turn around and kind of go out, and then you'd hit one spot that may make a giant oval, and then you come out. It's just so many places to fish. It's really neat, really unique. If you ever get down there, I highly recommend it. Go at least once. Let him mothership you out there, and it's just, you know, deep channels. I say deep, probably 6, 8, 10 feet. Deeper channels that branch off into these shallower mini channels that go into these super shallow, skinny water back bays. You know, you just kind of peek in there and look around, see any bait fish, see any fish moving. If not, you kind of pedal out and go on to the next one. It was just really cool.
Yeah, we didn't go far at all before we would ease back in there and pulling out the Mirage Drive and standing up and using our paddles as a push pole and pushing through these little back cuts into these little back ponds, and the redfish were there.
Oh yeah.
Now all the ones that I ran into, they weren't actively feeding, but and no matter what I threw at them, they didn't seem that they wanted it. But so we kind of moved on from there. It moved out into another like a wider bayou or creek, if you want to call it that. And we started fishing these little bays and cuts that were coming off this bigger one. And I guess the first fish I caught, probably another 16-inch red, but it was the same pattern as we did by the nets. They were hiding right behind the edge of an island, or the edge of a point that was sticking out, that was just breaking the cover now, breaking the current, whether it was a wind current or whether it was the tide current. It didn't matter. As long as there was current there, they would be on that little slack water side. So I caught one, moved up to like the next little point, caught another one, and by this time my son, he's like, "What are you using?" And so he comes over, and I'm throwing this Hoagie's swimming jack, and it's in like a black with red flake, and it's got a chartreuse tail on it. So I give him one, and I go across the little.
That was your first mistake.
That was my first mistake. Yeah. So I give him one, and I let him fish the side of this little bayou that I'm on, and I just move across to the next point, and doesn't take him but just a minute, and he hooks up on one, and he's just tickled to death. And then I think that was like a 20, 21, 22. We kept that one.
Yeah.
And then.
What, his next cast or his next second cast?
He hooks into a big one, like a big one. Enough. I paddled over, and there's going to be. We've got a YouTube channel for us, and there will be. We just haven't edited the GoPro videos of this, but
it'll be on the Instagram page too.
Yeah, it'll be on the Instagram page when we get it edited. So he ends up landing his personal best 31-inch redfish. He is nothing but smiles, and he continues to go on and kick our butts catching redfish the rest of the day on what he now refers to as the magic lure. So we keep going along, and bite kind of slows down. Pick up one here, one there. I had one on that ended up cutting me off on some oyster. Just a good slot fish. It wasn't a big one.
Yeah.
And it gets to be about 2 o'clock in the evening, and the wind kind of picks up, and we decided that we probably ought to head back. Now, the only way we know to get back is the way that we came, so we decided we just go with what you know, and we'll just work our way slowly back the way that we came. And I'm going to turn it over to Ryan after that.
We God dang, by this time I think I'm frustrated because I can't buy a bite, and Nick's hooked up, Cary's hooking up. So we're kind of cruising our way back, and there's this little grass island that it comes to a point, like Cary said, they're kind of hanging on that point where it kind of just breaks the water. And I made this lucky cast. I got it like 6 inches off this point, but as soon as it hits the water, the line goes tight. And I immediately see a tail swirl and barely come out of the water, and the line starts running wide. I go to set the hook. I get a good hook set, good solid slot red, probably 23 inches, 22 inches, somewhere right around there. Just a beautiful, beautiful fish. So I release him. I kind of get turned around, get reset. I don't know, Cary and I are 10 feet apart, 12 feet apart at most. And I'm trying to fish parallel to the grass because it drops off pretty quick into the deeper waters. I'm trying to run my bait along the drop off. So I make a cast, and it's probably, 10 or 12 feet off the bank. And I'm thinking I made a bad cast. Well, no sooner it hits the water, I don't even know if I even started reeling it, and it goes tight. And I think I'm hung up, but I feel like a little twitch or something. So I go to set the hook, and the drag just starts screaming. And it's everything I can do to hang on to the rod. Rod is bent over. I mean, it's just that dream bent over rod that we all, you fantasize about. Drag is just screaming. And at first I think I've got a Jack Corbell hooked up. It's just the way it's running, and it's running up current, and I can't even turn it. I can't stop it. I'm just letting him go. Drop the power pole on my kayak, and I'm like, Cary, I'm hooked up onto something. He goes, what is it? I was like, I can't even stop it. I don't even know. And I ended up having to lift the power pole up. I have to chase it down, and I don't know. At one point, she does a belly roll, and it's all you can see is bronze. It is bronze for days, and biggest redfish I've ever seen. I've caught. I don't know how long, maybe 10 minutes. We chased her and fought her. Finally got her. 36-inch redfish, by far my biggest personal best redfish ever. It was just incredible feeling. Solid 36 inches, just pure muscle.
Ryan's measuring board only went to
30 inches, and so
so
we're pretty.
It's a solid 36. It could be 37.
It could be 37. We went 36, but it was insane, just unreal. I never fought a fish of that caliber. So we released that. We get a bunch of photos of it. Got some really good GoPro video. Some really good cell phone video. I think Cary's GoPro dies.
My battery died while I was filming you.
You were filming me, yeah.
And when it died, I just went
flipped to your cell phone.
It turned out pretty
really
good.
Well, yeah.
Because the video of him landing it is on our Instagram right now, and also the video of him measuring it. And
yeah.
Of course, we released the fish too.
Yeah, got a good release on the fish. She kicked off, and she swam off free and no issues at all. And so we get set. We get kind of let our nerves settle. I do a bunch of high fives, and we're all like giggling like school children. And get back going down that same canal. And next cast, I throw it out there, and immediate line goes tight. I set the hook, drag starts screaming again, and I'm like, Cary.
So at this point, we're like 5 yards apart. We're both making casts, and our casts land about 5 yards apart.
Oh, they were.
And then next thing you know, he's hooked up again.
I'm hooked up again, drag screaming.
You son of a gun.
Rod's been over. I'm like, here we go again, and. Turns out it's probably a good 15 or 20 pound black drum, just big ugly, man. God dang, that was fun. We'll have a photo of that one. My GoPro died, so I didn't have my GoPro on to film that. I think Cary got some of it. I'm not sure, but we got some photos of it as well. That's on our Instagram page, and so just next cast. Caught that. It was just unreal. It was just crazy.
It was crazy. So we were paddling back to where to meet Eddie, and only thing I can catch is trout. Yeah. I think I put 3 trout on the stream.
3 or 4 trout just
on the way back.
I think at one point I snake over to where you're casting to try to, because I just want to catch a trout, and I can't even catch a trout. But I'm okay with that after the 2 fish I'd caught right then.
So Mr. Eddie comes back and picks us up, and needless to say, that has been the best day of kayak fishing that we have ever had.
Oh, by far.
I mean, 2 personal bests. My son Nicholas had never caught a red 31 inches.
Well, he sight casted his
he
first
sight
fish,
casted
you
his
know.
first
So it's
fish,
just an epic day on the water. Beautiful scenery. The marsh was pretty. The fishing was unreal. It's just an epic day for us. By far the best day.
So we come back, and this is, I guess that's Wednesday.
It was Wednesday. It was Wednesday.
So come back. We decided not to go. We talked about going out to the nets again and catching some more that evening, but we were pretty whooped. So we stayed in. We fished the pier, the fishing pier again that night. It wasn't near as good as it was the first day or the second day. I think we managed to scratch out 1 or 2, but we didn't stay up very long. We were pretty tired. Then we looked at our plan was to fish Thursday morning till about noon, and then pack up. We're in Central Texas, so like I said, it was an 8.5 hour drive for us to get there. So we were going to turn around and drive back, but we looked at the weather, and the thunderstorms were supposed to start rolling in Thursday morning.
Mm-hmm.
So we kind of packed up most of our stuff Wednesday night, and sure enough, we drove through all kinds of rain.
Yeah, I think I first heard it at 5:30 or 6 a.m. that morning, and then I don't think it stopped till we got near Beaumont.
Yeah.
We probably drove a bit of 4.5 hours. It's a pretty torrential downpour. Good news was that we'd already watched the kayaks, but the good news was that we watched them for us.
So, kind of just recapping the PAC thing, or the Pointe Aux Chenes, and it's PAC Kayak Rentals. Lisa and Eddie are the owners and founders, and take care of everything. Other things that they have there, they've got a full tackle shop there, all the ice you need, live bait. When we were there, they had
minnows,
mud minnows, and
frozen shrimp.
Yeah, frozen shrimp. They didn't have any live shrimp. I guess it wasn't shrimp season.
Yeah, he said he didn't. It's too much work, I guess, for the shrimp to keep them live.
So, wasn't any live shrimp you could buy there. I'm sure probably somewhere close you could.
Yeah.
We're mostly artificial fishermen. We'll fish live bait, when the situation requires it, but we're mostly artificial. And most of the time we're catch and release guys too, but every now and then we keep some to just eat for a meal. They got ice. They rent kayaks. They'll rent you paddle kayaks or pedal kayaks. Pedal being Hobies. They have he had compasses.
Outback, couple Outbacks, and then some PAs.
They had a tandem 17-foot PA.
God, that thing was massive.
That thing was huge.
Oh, it was big.
It was huge. So they'll rent you those. All their prices and stuff are on their website.
Pretty reasonable pricing. I mean, you could tell they're not out to really get you by your money. They're making a little bit, but they're more. You can just tell they want you to have the best time there. I mean, if you asked Eddie for his jacket because you were cold, I bet you he'd give you his jacket.
He'd take care of you.
Yeah.
On the way down there, we stopped in Lafayette at PAC and Paddle.
Oh man, that was cool.
Beautiful little store that they've got there. But
highly recommend stopping if you have the time.
I looked online before we made the trip because I was gonna. At the time, I thought I was gonna have to rent a Hobie too for Ryan. Let me borrow his other one. That's a good friend for you.
For free, I might add.
So but they were $25 higher. If I could to rent the same kayak from PAC and Paddle was $25 higher than it was to rent it from Lisa and Eddie. So
and then you got to trailer it.
Yeah,
we'd have to throw it on the trailers. It's just if you hit him up ahead of time, he'll make sure to have one for you.
Yep.
It's said it's got the Mirage drive. It's not the 180, but it's got a Mirage drive. It's got a paddle. It's got a stakeout pole.
Nicholas had no problem at all.
Yeah, Eddie makes sure when you rent one of his kayaks, it's the least amount of work you would have to do to.
Speaking of least amount of work, let's talk about the launch.
Wow. So this guy, Eddie. I've not been to many places. I've been to a couple kayak launches, nothing compares to this. So
Yeah, most time, you know.
He's got a really cool story about how it started. Rex Del Rey did an interview with him on YouTube, and Eddie kind of talks about how everything started. Basically saw a guy launching a kayak across the canal on a regular boat ramp, saw him trip and fall, hurt himself. So Eddie kind of got the idea to build. I think he started out with 2. And it just grew from there, and he's got, 6? I think it's 6, and I think he's got plans to add a couple more.
They're kayak slips, just like a boat slip, but they're the size of kayaks, and it rigged so that it floats up and down with the tide. So there's PVC pipe that's cut in half that you screw down on the deck, so you can literally, you slide your kayak off, slide it onto the
It's a floating dock. It's got a hard deck, and then a floating deck that's got the slips, and literally your kayak never touches wood until you're in the slip.
Yeah. And then you can literally one-handed slide it off the deck, slide it into the slip, and it's got a little tie off there, little clip you can clip onto it, and your kayak sits right there, and you step off, off the slip right into the kayak. Easy peasy.
Just incredible launch site.
We were there during the week. We specifically went, Monday through Thursday. But they told us, just leave your kayaks right here on the deck. And there's people that, there's a couple of guys that were there fishing with us, or not with us, but at the same time, they just left theirs in the water.
Yeah.
So we would pull ours up and wash them off, that kind of thing.
Yeah, he's got a pretty high powered water hose right there that so you can wash all your stuff. And so we'd pull it up in the afternoons or the evenings, rinse it off, and leave it there. And it's
fish cleaning stations right there.
Yeah. It's all right there, centrally located.
So they had ice, and Lisa told us the first day, she's like, y'all need ice in the middle of the night, just we leave it unlocked. Just let us know. And they keep a running tab, like the waitress has when she takes your order. They just keep a little running tab, and you'll into your stay. You just go over and see Lisa and Eddie and settle up, and go from there.
Yeah.
What else?
That new restaurant. I don't know if I'd say new, but they've got a little restaurant there as well that I think she said Thursday through Sunday.
Mm-hmm. Show me your biscuits.
Show me your biscuits. Guys, this is the biggest biscuits I've ever seen and the best biscuits I've ever seen.
So Thursday morning before we left, we went up there, and we talked to her Wednesday when we were cleaning the kayaks up. She said she'd open up at 5 a.m. on Thursday. And so we ended up going up there and ordering some, I think we ordered some egg, sausage and cheese, biscuits.
It's like $3.
I know, right?
It's huge.
And it was Eddie comes up there, and what's Matt's last name?
Carr?
Matt Carr. He's the kayak guide that lives down there. He's a PAC's guide, and just so happens Rex Del Rey
was
there at the same time we were. So we're all standing up there eating these biscuits, and then Rex they were talking about we needed to have a hashtag and have a contest of show me your biscuits. So we were taking pictures with these wonderful breakfast biscuits that they were making. They were delicious. But she's on, like I said, she said she's open Thursday through Sunday.
Yeah, and burgers.
Yeah.
Fish, shrimp, poor boys. I mean, it's and Eddie built I guess an outside seating area up on top.
Yeah.
You kind of walk from underneath the awning, and it's a kind of an open upper deck with tables. And I mean, the guy's a jack of all trades. And again, you're sitting there eating, and you're looking out into the marsh. It's just incredible view, gorgeous views.
So if you want to figure out where Pointe Aux Chenes, it's not Pointe Aux Chenes is at. It's about 20 miles southeast of Houma, Louisiana. And where the road ends is where it is at. The road doesn't go any further than that. The website for PAC Kayak Rentals, it's PAC kayakrental.com is their website if you want to go in there and look and see what they do. Again, we're not sponsored by anybody. Ain't nobody paying us a dime. We took this trip. We loved it. We're going back. In fact, we already sent Lisa some dates, and the houseboat was already booked for those dates. So we're in negotiations to try to book another trip. So awesome trip, and we would certainly do it again. Can you think of anything else we're missing about that?
No, I'm just ready to get back down there.
So other things that we're going to be doing this year, we are we had a Matagorda. I did a trip last year with a friend of mine where we paddled from Port O'Connor out to Matagorda Island and spent a couple nights out there on the island, eating what we caught, and then turned around and paddling back. We had that trip pretty much set up, and then I got an invite to go to Venice, Louisiana, for a tuna and wahoo fishing trip. So I ended up backing out, and now all my friends hate me, but that's all right.
Yeah,
they'll get over it.
Still salty, but it's okay.
What else are we going to do this year? We're going to go to Port O'Connor and fish.
I think we're going to keep working the marshes in Galveston and Freeport.
That's kind of our go-to from where we're at. It's closest to us, so we fish a lot of that West Galveston Bay, Freeport area. We've been down to East Matagorda that.
Yeah, that was fun. It was pretty.
And we've been down to. I think we made 2 day trips down to Port O'Connor last year. But we had a great time. I mean, I guess the second trip we went out at Charlie's.
Yeah.
And I think I sight casted I think a dozen redfish that day.
We just chased schools of redfish that day. That was nuts.
So we're gonna go back down there and try that again. Another thing, we work night shifts, so we do a lot of night fishing. So I think we were talking about maybe doing that this coming up week, and we'll give you a report on how that goes here on the next podcast. So hopefully we're looking at doing these podcasts once a week. And like I said, sometimes we might have interview somebody for you and talk to them. Sometimes it's going to be us, talking about what we're doing, how we're finding fish, where we're catching fish, and giving you rundowns of the trips that we take. And these are, like I said, we're ordinary guys. We're just doing, some of them are day trips, some of them are weekend trips where we go, maybe take a camper and go camp and do that, or this Louisiana one was a little bit further away, but it's certainly that it's not that expensive, and it
really wasn't. Yeah. It really wasn't that expensive at all.
Other than an 8.5 hour drive, which just comes with it. So, but it was, again, we'd do it again tomorrow if we could do it.
Absolutely.
Anything else you can think about?
No.
About kayak?
I think that's it right now.
Well, so we're running about 42 minutes. That's pretty much on spot. We're looking to have these, 45 minutes, maybe an hour, and go from there. So we appreciate y'all listening. Again, it's the Salty Yak on Facebook, and the Salty Yak on Instagram, and we're the saltyyak@gmail.com if you want to send us an email or messages. If you got any ideas for questions or trips that we ought to take, just send us a message. All right. Thank you, guys. Y'all have a good time.
See y'all, guys.